With the Brood 19 cicada hatch on its way, and many local tires are also gearing up, I came up with this pattern, the Turbo Cicada. The pattern starts with a firehole 7/18 and a size 8. For this pattern I'm using UTC 70 denier in black. Start out by placing the hook securely in the jaws of your tying vise. Start your thread roughly 2 hook eye lengths behind the eye, then create a thread base that ends between the hook point and the bend. End your thread right where we stop the base, then break off the tag. For the foam body on this fly, I've cut to size by eye a thin strip of 2mm black craft foam. I like to cut one edge of the foam to a rough point to create a stable tie-in anchor. This makes it easier to tie in the foam. Tie in the foam strip by the point and take several tight wraps to secure it. For the underbody, I chose to use a unique material called Mini Flexi Squishineel to add a very bug-like texture to this pattern. A 6/6 length is enough to tie about 2 flies. Tie in the squishineel right where the foam starts and take several wraps to secure it. Once the squishineel is secured, advance your tying thread 1 hook eye length behind the hook eye. Now start wrapping the squishineel, taking close touching wraps until you reach your tying thread. Once you reach your tying thread, tie off the squishineel with tight wraps behind and in front to ensure it not to come loose. Then snip it off close, being careful not to cut your thread. Now fold the foam strip on top of the underbody and tie it in right where we left our thread. Make sure that you're wrapping tightly, and it helps if you pull up on the thread to keep the foam from spinning. With 70 denier, you can usually get away with about 9 to 10 wraps. Now with a pair of fine point scissors, snip the extra foam off close as possible, taking care not to cut your thread in the process. Take several wraps of thread to form a neat head on the fly, taking just enough wraps to cover the excess material. Now grab your whip finish tool and use it to do a 5 to 6 turn whip finish. Secure the knot well, then you guessed it, snip or cut your tying thread free. Now reattach your thread to just in front of the halfway point of the hook and take a few wraps to cement this spot. And then snip off the tag. When it comes to the legs, there are so many types of legs you can try. Round rubber legs, different varieties of classic silly legs like the orange barred or the root beer color I show here, or even span flicks could do the trick. I've opted to use the barred round rubber legs. Grab a pair of scissors and cut off a whole length off the hang. The best way to do this is to double the length in half, find the center, and pinch it there like this. Now prepare for the next step. Place the double over length on top of the thread position and tie it in with about 4 relatively loose wraps. Now slide the legs to either side of the fly to the desired position like so. Take a few more wraps to lock them in. Again, for the wing, there are many materials you can use, but I'd like to think the best options are EP fiber style materials like this macrame cord, or plain old polypro like this watershed treated Flylawn. I went with the macrame cord. Take your material of choice, here I used macrame cord, and separate a clump about this big and cut it off square on both ends. It's about a 2-inch piece, that'll usually do. Double check to ensure the ends are square, if they're not, just snip it again. Place this piece and measure it to where it just extends past the back of the hook bend, and then tie it in with about 6 nice tight wraps of tying thread. Now snip the front wing off to just a little nub, don't cut it all the way off. For the hackle, I'm using a standard black saddle. I do like to go small in this pattern, about a 14-16 size hackle will do. I just eyeballed it here. Double check size by using a hackle gauge to ensure it's a 14 or 16, like I show here. This feather was almost a perfect 14. I like to strip a small bit of the stem off at the bottom of the hackle for ease of tie-in. Make about 4 securing wraps on the hackle stem to secure it. Then start wrapping with the feather to fill in this little gap and to hackle the fly. I think I snuck in 6 wraps here. Now bring the hackle up to vertical and tie it off with a few good wraps. Then reach in with your scissors and snip the stem off close. Grab your whip finish tool for the last time and do a 4 to 5 turn whip finish, secure the knot well, then snip or cut your tying thread free. To create the legs, grab your pair of scissors and snip the front loop in half. Now you can trim the legs to your desired length. In my opinion, a little shorter looks nicer. And there you have it, TFs Turbo Cicada.